Hello, welcome everyone to today's WUMI LinkedIn Live webinar. Use your own data to thrive. My name is Hayley Rient. I am the business developer at WUMI, and I'm also the moderator for today's session. I'm extremely excited to guide you through this session where we'll be discussing how organizations can harness their own data for better decision making and better success. To kick us off, I'd like to introduce Wim Delver. Welcome, Wim. I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yes, my apologies. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
Thanks.
Let me introduce Wim Delver. So Wim is the managing director of WUMI, a data science consulting firm that specializes in data infrastructure, data analytics, and data storytelling. WUMI helps organizations unlock the full potential of their data to drive better strategic and operational decisions. Wim has spent his career working at the intersection of health and data sciences. Wim, let's start with you. Can you please share some insights into the current data challenges organizations might be facing and why so many struggle to use their data effectively?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for everyone who's made the time to join us and spend the next 50 minutes or so. Really appreciate it, and I hope this is useful. We thought, let's start at the core. Let's start about talking about data and why it is so important that organizations are able to use their own data. It should be obvious, but it's not. And I want to give two examples of organizations who have failed to use their own data and how bad that went for them. Both are in the health sphere, and both happen to be from the US. So there's a company called Purdue Pharma. They had a drug called Oxycontin, which they knew for a long time was being misused and overprescribed. But they chose to ignore that information and instead continue their very aggressive marketing. And their failure to act on this data contributed greatly to the opioid crisis, but it also led to massive lawsuits, and these eventually caused Purdue Pharma to go bankrupt. The second example is an electronic health record system called Cerner, which is now called Oracle Health. Cerner and Epic were the two giants that were in a constant neck-and-neck race for market share in the electronic health record space. But internal data showed that users were not very excited about the user friendliness of the Cerner system. And they were receiving poor ratings, and doctors were complaining about the inefficient workflows and the poor system design. Again, Cerner had the data, knew that this was true, and they were distracted. They were busy with an acquisition, and they didn't act on this information. And as a result, they kept on losing market share several years in a row. And now, relatively speaking, Epic has 64% higher market share compared to Cerner. And this happened within the space of a few years. So ignoring your own data is at your own peril and can go really badly.
Yes, it can go extremely bad. I have a random question just for the audience. Has any of your organizations ever struggled with messy or disconnected data? Please feel free to drop a tick in the chat, and then it would be really interesting to see if you resonate with the overarching story Wim just shared. Cool, thank you very much, Wim, for the insightful introduction. Now, to help us understand the real-world impact of data-driven decision-making, I'd really like to, and I'm extremely happy and excited to welcome our first speaker, Linda Toussaint. Welcome, Linda.
Good afternoon, Hayley. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Really appreciate it and looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome, thank you. for joining us. So Linda is the CEO of the fast-growing network of Unjani clinics. Each clinic is nurse-led and provides high-quality primary care at affordable rates to rural, peri-urban, and urban communities across the country being South Africa. Linda is a chartered accountant with extensive experience in clinic, retail pharmacy, and pharmaceutical logistics. Over the last 11 years, she has grown Unjani clinics from a handful of locations to more than 240 clinics, seeing about 120,000 patients every month. Wow. Thank you, Linda, for joining us. Linda, can you share how data played a role in Unjani clinics' early days and how this has evolved over time?
Yes, thanks, Hayley. I think so from the very early days and still to some extent today, Excel has remained a key data source for Unjani Clinic. Since our inception, our nurses have been responsible for reporting their clinic's performance, an essential requirement to ensure their sustainability and profitability, and obviously supporting as small businesses grow. But initially, this was done through various methods, including monthly consultation reports and financial summaries, tracking income and expenses. However, as with any data collection process, the reliance on human input, errors and inconsistencies were inevitable. From a patient and clinic management perspective, we transitioned from purely manual patient files, which were cumbersome to store, often lacked security and provided no clinical outcome data, to developing our own clinic management system, which we call WeCare. It's been designed by nurses, for nurses, and it's a very powerful business tool, which enables efficient clinic management, offering valuable insights into the performance, revenue generation, stock usage, the services provided in those clinics, and treatments administered. And in additionally, it integrates Excel-driven components such as staff and HR records, financial summaries, and stock management. So streamlining operations and enhancing data accuracy. The challenge with managing raw data across 100 clinics at that stage was the need for more accessible and visible or visually intuitive representation of that data. So we needed a solution that could highlight those key areas of concern and guide our focus of our teams more effectively. And this led us to explore the use of dashboards for data visualization.
That's amazing. And now that you have that full visibility over the data, how has this helped you with the decision making? And can you share some specific examples?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we started to look for organizations that could help us get to, that visualization. And we looked at organizations that could help us represent it in a meaningful and standardized public health format, which is why we came across WIMI, and WIMI helped us in terms of doing that. So our WeCare dashboards have revolutionized data visualization for Unjani clinics, really enabling us to gain rapid insights into the Unjani clinic network, optimizing efficiencies, allocating resources strategically, deriving powerful evidence-based performance insights as well. And we can now benchmark clinic performance by province and classification, be it rural and urban, also allowing us to make informed decisions about the time required for a clinic to achieve that sustainability. Additionally, we can also identify clinics that are not aligned with expected trends and proactively allocate resources and marketing efforts to accelerate improvements in those clinics. But most importantly, from a health outcomes perspective for us, we now have access to critical data that was previously unavailable to us, including the number of patients with HIV, those on antiretroviral treatments, and whether their condition is being controlled. We're also able to look at that across other non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and other chronic diseases. So it gives us incredible insight. And then our dashboards encompass finance, HR, operations, clinical metrics, projects, and sustainability visualizations. And so for our funders, who we are entirely reliant on, our ability to make data-driven, evidence-based decisions is invaluable, ensuring transparency and reinforcing our credibility as a trustworthy organization.
Awesome. It sounds very amazing, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. I think our team is really grateful that we are still part of this journey. I would like to next dive into, I guess we would all like to know, how is this data platform built? And I would like to bring in our technical director, Ulrich. Welcome, Ulrich.
Hello, everyone.
So Ulrich is our technical director at WIMI, and he actually has, and still is, directly involved in designing and implementing the data platform for Unjani clinics. Ulrich, can you walk us through the journey from scoping to implementation and ongoing data-driven improvements?
Yes, I can, Haley. Firstly, thank you, Linda. It's been such a pleasure working with you and the team at Unjani. You really are and have been the dream client. Your vision has shaped large parts of what we have built, and yeah, we hope that today through the webinar we can extend the knowledge and experience we've built with you and the Unjani team to all of the people on the call. So yeah, at the start of the project, it was not all sunshine and rainbows though. It was late nights and plenty of hard work to really understand Unjani's challenges and formulate a solution that could work for them and other companies similar to them as well. And I guess that's why we're here today, is to kind of extend what we've learned with Unjani and extend that to everyone on the call so we can work through the learnings. So I'm going to start by painting a picture from the start of the project so we can really understand the data problem we were solving. And then I'll move to solution mode to focus on the technical specifications and kind of what we did and what we actually built. So like Linda mentioned, Unjani Clinics generates a lot of raw data through its electronic health record system. It's called WeCare. This is a bespoke system built by nurses for nurses, designed by Unjani. Yeah, and like we mentioned before, a wealth of data is captured on this platform by the nurses, detailed information about consultations, finance data, HR. It really is an amazing tool. And while the system effectively captures operational data, they were not really extracting any value from it yet. So it was working really well as an operational tool, but they wanted to take one step further and really extract insights from the data. But of course, like any business, I mean, you don't just have one source of data, right? There are many sources of data. So some of the other data included within the Unjani ecosystem is marketing data, finance data, and something Linda mentioned before, and I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people, a lot of business still happens on Excel. And for us, this was something we had to come up with innovative ways of integrating this data and linking it to WeCare, building it into our reporting layers, because these data sources are still really important to the business and to understand what's going on in the business. So Unjani and Linda recognized that they could generate strategic insights from this data to drive better decision making. So this would be both at a macro level, so that's network wide, and at a micro level, so at a clinic and patient level. There was really insights that they could extract from this data. It was there, it was available to them. They just had to extract it. Cool. So the Unjani team really understood the value hidden in their data, and they wanted to use it to guide strategic growth, optimize the operations, and measure the impact that they're making. So to summarize their challenges, that multiple data sources. So of course, the electronic health record system forms the foundation, but Unjani also needed to integrate finance, marketing, manual reporting data to get a complete picture of their business. And all of these data sources were kind of siloed. They were living in different places. Not everyone had access to everything. And it wasn't really possible to join all of this together at the time. Another important component and challenge we had to overcome is that the data was stored in a complex relational database. So once again, extracting meaningful insights from this raw operational data is quite a big hurdle that you have to overcome. And any solution we built needed to scale. Unjani is a network of clinics that's on the rise. It's growing month by month, week by week. And as the network is growing, so is the data. So whatever we built really had to scale as the network was scaling. So to dive into the actual technical approach and solution, I'll start by maybe just discussing Wumi's view on this before we jump in. So at Wumi, we prioritize simplicity, scalability, and repeatability in our engineering principles. This is one of the reasons we like to use the Google Cloud platform, and also to utilize serverless compute wherever we can, as these are allows us to move fast once the foundation is laid, and it makes the solutions we build repeatable and scalable. So first of all, we made use of serverless data pipelines. These pipelines were deployed on Cloud Run, making them easily scalable and repeatable. And this is a really important point that we'll get to later in one of our impact stories, as this approach allowed us for quick iteration and deployment without the need for heavy infrastructure management and integration. BigQuery was used as our centralized data warehouse. So this is a place where all of our siloed data sources were brought into one central place. So this allowed us to bring in the electronic health record data, finance data, marketing, the Excel spreadsheets maintained by business. All of these sources were ingested and landed in our raw layer in BigQuery. BigQuery is built for massive analytical workloads. It can handle petabytes of data, and we really had to leverage this to gain and extract insight from the data. So something that our partners and people inside of the business are probably tired of hearing, and this is a thing called the prepared layer. This is really central to the idea of taking siloed data, bringing it together in one place, joining it together and creating trusted, validated layers of data. So this is our idea behind the prepared layer. So once the raw data is ingested, it's all in one place in a central data warehouse. We create aggregated, curated, validated data layers. So these layers integrate different sources and ensure high data quality and consistency. And what this allows us to do is to build dashboards and analytics on top of these trusted data layers. So what this means is you have dashboards that are live, up to date. When you click on them and you look at them, you know you can trust the data and the data quality that's producing the visuals. And this really is a foundational part of joining siloed data together and producing visuals that can be trusted and used by business. I said I have one impact story. When we build platforms, we like to see the proof that it's actually doing what you say it's doing. There was a pilot project launched by Unjani, and they wanted to gain insights into the success of this pilot project. For us, from a technical point of view, this meant integrating with an entirely new data source, ingesting the data, creating prepared layers, joining that data onto all of the existing electronic health record data, and deploying multiple dashboards. And we had to do this quickly because we had to gain insights from this data to make strategic and operational decisions for the business. And we were able to do that all within a week because we had laid the groundwork, we had laid the foundation in terms of the pipelines, building simple, repeatable pipelines and prepared layers. So this really is a success story of kind of the foundation we laid and how this allowed us to really iterate quickly. and produce something of value that could help the business make decisions quickly and be agile in a data-driven way. Cool. So yeah, thanks, Haley. That was our approach. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
So Haley, if I could just jump in
Yes.
on the excitement, because it is the thing that I get so excited about, is just the speed that Uri spoke about in terms of helping us in a very lean way to be able to get on top of whether this pilot was something that was viable or not, and being able to see it in the way that Wimi was able to represent it to us, allowed us very quickly to make that decision. And I think, in a non-profit environment in which we are, you want to be able to make sure that you are using funding in the most appropriate way. And so being able to make that decision as quickly and transition to an alternative solution to what we were using, to find another way to do it, just was absolutely incredible. So well done to the team. It was really incredible.
That's amazing feedback. Thank you, Linda. I think the team thoroughly enjoys working with the Unjani Clinics team as well. Cool. Now that we've covered the technical implementation, thank you, Ulrich, for explaining that side of things. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Nadir Kasu. Welcome, Nadir.
Hi, Haley. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Great to be on the panel with such interesting company today.
Awesome. Thank you. Nadir is the COO of EM Guidance, a medtech company that provides healthcare professionals with instant access to up-to-date medical information, guidelines, and tools. With over 100,000 registered users, EM Guidance is at this moment the largest healthcare professional platform in South Africa. Every month, more than 50,000 doctors, nurses, and pharmacists rely on EM Guidance to make accurate clinical decisions, reducing errors and improving patient care. Nadir, thank you again for joining us. As I just mentioned, the EM Guidance, or given the scale of EM Guidance, does this mean that your organization is producing the term, as we call it, big data?
Big data, it's a buzzword, right? And I think the way we look at it is that it's really a relative word. The size of the data doesn't matter. It's actually the type and quality of the data and ultimately how you use it. And Linda made an interesting comment right at the beginning saying, it's a decision-making tool. So in the same way, you need data to make good decisions in any other business. As a platform provider, sort of supporting such a large audience, we have an even greater obligation to make sure that we use the data to make good decisions. So that's certainly our perspective on big data. Maybe two other things just to think about is that if you think about the way the world is moving, we are storing and curating an incredible amount of data. And I'm talking beyond EM Guidance now. Think about all the text, video, and all the other non-traditional sort of media types where we're just collecting this endless amount of data. So number one, you've got to store all the data. But number two, more importantly, you've got to understand, find the insights, and then make those decisions. And if your data is not structured, you can never rely on a human looking at billions of rows of data saying, oh, there's the answer, I've got it. So really, we want to zoom in on meaningful structures, being able to analyze the data efficiently, effectively, at speed, and really glean those insights, because that's what we're after. We need the insights, and that's what helps us empower our community, and in turn help them deliver better outcomes to their patients. So over the years, EM Guidance has collected a fair amount of this data, and we'll talk about that, I suppose, as our conversation evolves. But just to give you a sense of the scale, in 2024 alone, our users generated over 150 million engagement events. So those could include a search or viewing of a piece of content or clicking on something on our platform. So maybe to answer the question, we certainly are producing big data. And in healthcare industry terms, we think we're in quite a unique position to have access to this behavioral data. And it covers a fairly large segment of the population of healthcare professionals in the country. But it's really about the next stage. Storing it and collecting it is really only the starting point for us.
Thanks, Nadir. So I guess you do work with big data.
One could say so, yeah. How successfully, we can debate that.
Okay. And over the first, or during the first 8 years of EM Guidance's existence, your in-house data and analytics solution worked pretty fine, right? What motivated you to therefore upgrade and overhaul the solution?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ali. And if you think about the last 8 or 9 years of EM Guidance's existence, we've grown at a phenomenal rate. And every single one of our new healthcare professionals that join our community, each of them are creating data every time they use our platform. So you can imagine that at that sort of size and scale, we were adding huge amounts of data to our infrastructure. And if you haven't taken care of the architecture up front to make sure that you set yourself up for growth and scale, you quickly run into problems. So we ran into significant issues in terms of our ability to analyze the data and find the insights that we spoke about earlier on. And what we realized was that we were growing so fast, it was costing us more to process and store this data than it was to deliver the actual service to the healthcare professional. This is looking at it from a technology and infrastructure point of view, of course. So we had a few close calls where our data collection and storing capacity almost grind to a complete halt. And we needed to move our teams off revenue-generating projects to do things like fixing pipelines, upgrading servers, adding more capacity, adding more storage, whatever we needed to do to keep the proverbial lights on. So we realized that this was our early warning, and in order for us to really exploit and make commercial use of the data, we'd need to relook our architecture and bring in some experts to help us restructure what we're storing, how we store it, and how we can get to those insights, which is really what we wanted. So if content is king and frequency is queen, data could be the power behind the throne, but certainly in our case, we haven't figured out the answer to that question yet. But we knew that we needed to set ourselves up to become the industry leader in HCP engagement, behavior, and data insights.
That's awesome. And with that in mind, Nadir, now that you have kind of started using new data platform, what are the biggest differences you've been noticing with the old and the new system?
Yeah. So it's very early days for us, Ailey, and I think the team will acknowledge that we're probably quite a difficult customer. So that's why I'll understand that Linda's your favorite customer. We're your second favorite customer. That's okay. So very early in the very early stages in the project, but certainly the immediate sort of differences that spring to mind, and some of the things that we actually appreciate, is that architecturally we've taken a different route. We had a fixed cost sort of server hosted environment, and we've moved to a serverless pay-per-use platform. Now, we're no strangers to serverless environments, and we certainly understand its benefit in terms of scale and capacity. But what scared us was the potential cost implications of running up massive usage bills, storing data inefficiently, running queries that were not efficient. So those were significant challenges for us, and we needed to bring in the experts to help us solve this. So that was the first big difference. And again, bear with me, as we get into some of the sort of technical nitty-gritty, and I'm sure when we speak to Ulrich, he can add to this. The other big difference is really the cost side of it. And one of the big motivators for us was we needed to figure out a way to grow our business, but not grow our data infrastructure costs at the same rate, right? So, and I think that was the challenge we were running into. So I think one of the big observable differences now is that the rate of processing our data and storing our data at this very early stage looks like it's significantly lower than the existing infrastructure. So that's a very positive sign for us. We've sort of set a benchmark of, approximately 30% reduction in costs, but I think we're going to beat that. And certainly, I think we've got the right team to help us do it. So I'm looking forward to smashing that one out of the park. So that's the first one. Second one, in terms of the way we've structured data, and again, largely because of the experts that have really guided us here. And Wimi's team have been really good at making sure that we think about our data as a structured data lake, so that we can do cross-dimensional analysis, do things like prepared layers for regular sort of reporting and dashboards. And these are the things that we were almost building every single time, as in bespoke report building every single time, and we didn't have good infrastructure to scale that. The other big sort of observable difference is that we're getting very close to the point where we can have a single view of the healthcare professional in our system. So that's a full context of their profile data, their behavior data, external data that we can bring into the data lake. And that's where we really believe there's huge value to unlock. So if one thinks about a healthcare professional that has a certain usage pattern, it helps us recommend content to help them overcome whatever hurdle they may be trying to cross. And again, if we structure our data cleverly, and we can actually use those insights to deliver the right intervention at the right time for the right healthcare professional, we can definitely help them be more efficient, at the coalface. So that's really the observable differences we've seen so far. And then maybe last one, and again, it's very early days, so I'm going to say this with a little bit of a pinch of salt. I think in terms of speed, and maybe we obviously still sort of reskilling our teams to use the new infrastructure, but just in terms of running a query, there's an observable difference in terms of taking a data set, crunching through a certain sort of set of parameters and trying to come out with an insight on the other side. What used to take us 45, 55 minutes of watching the sort of circle of death spinning around has turned into something that literally takes, a few minutes. So that's been extraordinary on our side, just in terms of the efficiency and being able to get through so much more. And again, very early days, but the signs are very, very promising. And so far, I think from, certainly from our side, we've seen this first phase as a massive success for our organization.
That's amazing. And it's really exciting that you're already seeing some results and something that's making you excited for the next phase, which is really exciting to hear. I'm not sure if there's so much, well, I'm sure there's so much more potential that you can unlock, but that brings me to my next question. What is next? Can you maybe tell us more about IM Guidance's roadmap for this data insights?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and something we've grappled with for a while, but we really see two tracks. The first track is really just that we're sitting on this treasure trove of data, which in its aggregated form is valuable to the industry. We've not been able to unlock and create the right kind of visualizations or just access to the data to help industry partners, make good decisions. So think about some of our data. It could shape it really could shape the narrative and even the agenda of national, provincial health departments, hospital groups, pharmaceutical companies, etc. And these kinds of insights could help with things like system strengthening interventions, some targeted campaigns, or even some sort of disease-specific issues, and maybe some primary healthcare interventions that could sort of prevent further upstream healthcare costs. So we see that there's sort of a very useful place for us there if we can unlock that. And we had a taste of it during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we could definitely use our platform and the data it was generating to guide healthcare professionals and try and make sure we put the right information at the right time in front of the right sort of for the right patient under the right context. So that was very useful for us, and we think that sort of access at scale is certainly something that's useful to the industry. So that's one. Our second track is a bit more integrative, where we want to look at combining the insights and also adding some interactive views of the data, potentially even access to the raw data itself. Was ultimately the ability to explore the data allows the industry as a whole to find their own insights. Because I think for us trying to figure it out, I think it's almost impossible to understand everyone's use case and understand their needs properly. So we definitely see a pathway where we're going to have to open up some of the data to industry and allow them to explore and slice and dice the data and find the insights that they need. So really, we think that a key part of that sort of value proposition is building on the insights And we think that there are some unique ones that are specific to EM guidance. And of course, from a value proposition, that's what we're going to build our offering around. There are definitely multiple sources of healthcare data. Think about data sitting in EHRs. Linda and her team are also generating data, et cetera, et cetera. There are all sorts of entities, and it's disparate, right? It's all over the place. And one of the things that we are keen on exploring is trying to create an aggregated view of multiple sources of data. So when we speak about architecture and the problem we're trying to solve, and the sort of longer term view is to say, if we become the central aggregator of industry level sort of healthcare trends and data, as long as we can get access to the right sources and organize the data, structure it properly, and make it available to industry, we believe that there's a fair amount of value that we can create, not only for ourselves but for the industry as a whole.
That's amazing. Thank you, Nadir, for sharing some insights and the latter. Now let's go back to Orif. To break down, I would like Orif you to break down how some of these cost savings and technical improvements were actually realized. And if you can maybe explain how moving from fixed cost infrastructure to a variable cost model for analytics that has been impacting all organizations like EM Guidance.
Cool. Thanks, Hayley, and thank you, Nadir, for giving more context about EM Guidance and their data needs. So I think in a similar way to Njani, I'll start by giving a bit more context on kind of the problem we need to solve, and then I'll move on to the actual technical solution we are busy building and designing with the EM Guidance team. Like Nadir said, we're kind of still in very early stages, and initially it's looking really, really good. So I'll kind of explore that, and we can kind of dive into the problems we're solving. So like Nadir alluded to before, EM Guidance is a heavily used application that produces a wealth of user data. I mean, I think on a daily basis, there are 15 to 20,000 daily active users, mostly doctors, students, pharmacists, and they can produce up to 150,000 rows of data per hour at peak hours. So if you think about your Excel spreadsheet, this equates to about 45 million cells of data, which is a lot of data. And that's per hour. So you can imagine if you're producing this volume of data on an hourly basis, how much raw data is actually stored in your data infrastructure. So the actual problem we were solving for EM Guidance was twofold. So firstly, EM Guidance are interested in understanding their users' behavior patterns in order to produce better products and ultimately serve their stakeholders better. So in a similar way to Njani, they have the need of understanding their customers both at a macro level, so big picture, and at a micro individual level. Secondly, they wanted to reduce the fixed cost of their current data architecture, which was scaling linearly as the size of the data was scaling. Every few months or years, the data scales enough and requires a bigger server. It leads to more fixed costs. You have to upgrade the server. You have to build new data pipelines, fixed pipelines. So the scaling of cost was becoming difficult to maintain. This led to a conversation with us around how we could leverage the cloud, serverless technologies, how we could structure the data better to reduce this high cost of analytics. So, like we said before, historically, EM Guidance operated on a fixed cost infrastructure. What this means is that your data infrastructure is costing you money every month, whether you're using it or not, right? If over the December holidays, everyone's on the beach, you're still paying for that data infrastructure. What this means is it's not very flexible and can lead to kind of underutilized resources during low demand periods. And the bill grows as the size of the data grows. So our goal was to transition to a more efficient, scalable model that would optimize and reduce costs while maintaining and enhancing the analytical capabilities. So it's kind of the twofold problem we're trying to solve. We're going to deal with the costs, but we also want to enhance our analytical capabilities. So for us at Wumi, because we love to use serverless technologies and cloud native technologies, this sounded right up our alley, sounded like the kind of problem we want to solve. So in terms of the actual technology we made use of, I'm not going to delve too much into the data pipelines. Of course, they're kind of using serverless, Cloud Run, CI/CD, that kind of technology. But the real difference maker for us in this specific project was BigQuery. It was chosen as our centralized data warehouse. And there are a few reasons why. Number one, it's a petabyte scale data warehouse. So the large amount of data that EM Guidance is producing is no problem. Nadir alluded to the 45-minute query that became 2 minutes. I have a similar story for Unjani where I was running a report and it ran for 42 minutes. And then I ran the same report in BigQuery and it took 7 seconds. So it really is a difference maker in terms of heavy lifting of big data. It really can do that efficiently and handle large amounts of data, which is of course something we want to do, as we already have a large amount of data and it's just going to be growing and growing and growing as we go on. Secondly, the actual storage of the data is actually relatively cheap. So in terms of the monthly semi-fixed cost of storing data there, that cost is not too expensive. So you don't have this giant fixed cost just for the kind of right to store your data there. That part is a little bit cheaper. The real costs occur when you're actually querying the data. Therefore, you're only paying when you're making use of the underlying serverless compute to query the data. So that's where the pay-as-you-go model comes in. You're paying when your analyst is actually writing queries or your prepared layers are running. These are the things that are incurring costs and which create the pay-as-you-go model. So if you think about that, this always brings up the question of the runaway train in terms of costs. I mean, this is often something people associate with the cloud, is they think it's really expensive. How can I stop my data scientists from racking up a bill the size of a small country's GDP? I mean, we've all heard these horror stories of someone running a query and it's costing a lot of money. So this was an important part for us to figure out as well. So there are a number of ways you can deal with this. One of the ways we did it was in kind of the way we partitioned the data and set up the actual data architecture. So the way we store the raw data and how we transition that into staging and prepared layers, which are then used for analytics and reporting in an efficient way, where the queries aren't costing a lot of money and we can actually interface with the data in an efficient way. Another really important thing we did to kind of mitigate generating costs that are too big is putting guardrails in place. So the use of system quotas is quite important in this environment where you are pay as you go. So only allowing a data analyst or a data scientist to spend a certain amount of money per day, for example. So you can limit the amount of data they're allowed to process in a day. And in that way, you have a handbrake that goes up if there is an extremely inefficient query that maybe gets run by accident. You can, of course, go over this if you want to, but it is nice to just know this backup plan is in place if something were to go wrong. But like Nadir said, raw data alone doesn't drive impact. It's what you do with the data that really, really matters. And this is really where BigQuery and data warehouses become a game changer. It's not just a data warehouse, it's an analytical powerhouse. It seamlessly integrates across many different services. BigQuery allows us to build prepared data layers. And this is something I touched on earlier. And like I said, this is a foundational, really, really important thing to us is the prepared layer. It's taking raw data, bringing it in from different places, aggregating it, storing it in an efficient way where it can be accessed by dashboards and analysis can be performed on it. So what this means is decision makers no longer have to sift through mountains of raw data. they get clear, actionable insights when they need them, and it's live. And another really important part of the data warehouse and kind of the design principles we use is that it's future-proof. And that's something business leaders are always worried about, is my business is growing, my user base is growing, my data is growing. We need to think about the future, and whatever we build needs to be able to scale with the business as well. And this is really something that Pickery take cares of for us. So yeah, in terms of impact, at the moment, it looks like we are able to significantly reduce the monthly cost of the data for EM guidance. Like I said, we're still in early phases, but like Nadir said, I think we have the target of 30%, and it looks like we're going to smash that out of the water. Scalability is unlocked, really important. We can allow EM guidance to expand its analytical capabilities without increasing the cost linearly. And lastly, we've laid the foundation as well for predictive analytics that can further enhance decision-making and user experience and things like that. So, yep, that's it. Thanks, Haley. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Nadir, do you want to comment or anything?
Yeah, maybe just one, just to add sort of 2 cents. I think the one unexpected benefit of going through this process is we also had the opportunity to look at what we were collecting. And I think part of the process is also rationalizing what you pull through into your prepared layers. So I think, I mean, Ulrich mentions that, you know, as part of the philosophy. That was a really hard step for us, because you always think that, you know, if data is gold, why do I want to leave anything behind? I'm going to carry everything with me, right? And the challenge with that is that you just make everything downstream harder. So maybe one of the lessons to anyone going through this process is to really understand, you know, the structure of your data, and make sure that, you know, the data that you don't need, in inverted commas, you may need it at some stage in the future, but you don't need it right now to make a decision. Don't pull those through into your prepared layers, because you're just going to perpetuate the problem you had before you started the project. So that's an important sort of learning for us that we perhaps weren't properly prepared for. But certainly we've taken heed of that, and I think we're on the right path. I think there's still a lot of work to be done there, but we're on the right path. And then maybe just to add to your comment around improving sort of the scalability going forward, and the challenge with having sort of a data infrastructure architecture built by someone outside of your organization. That's also an equally challenging sort of assignment, especially for a tech-based company like ourselves. The sort of inherent sort of drive is, oh, we can do it ourselves. And one needs to acknowledge that, you know, there are experts around that can help you really grow and scale. And you know, this was, you know, our sort of first exploration. And so far, I think, as Ulrich described, I think certainly from a cost reduction point of view, we're going to hit that goal. In terms of growth and scale, well, let's see what the future holds. But so far, so good.
That's amazing. Thank you, Nadir. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground today with all this valuable insights that were shared. And thank you again, Linda and Nadir, for sharing and being willing to share your journey, whether that be your personal journey with your relevant organizations, and how WIMI has joined and continues loving and enjoying adding value to that process. I would like to open the floor up for some questions to our audience members. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll try our best to get to as many as we can. It would be really great if you can also please direct it to the relevant speaker or the person on the panel that you would like to ask the question to. I definitely have one of two questions. I think, Nadir, you actually answered my question already. You beat me to it, where I would have loved to ask the panelists, anyone, whether that be Wim or if Linda or Nadir, if there is any piece of advice that you would give an organization that's starting to think seriously about leveraging their data, what would that piece of advice be? I think, Nadir, you answered a bit of it just now, but I'd like to open it up to anyone else.
I'm happy to jump in if I can. I think, it is recognizing, and it's exactly what Nadir said, is recognizing that there are incredible experts in this field. Before I met Wimmy, I had no idea that you had scientists, architects, and storytellers in a data context. And they, the Wimmy team manages to do all of that and more. So I think it really is about recognizing great organizations like Wimmy, who's been able to transition the way that we've looked or used data into information that we can make business decisions around. So yeah, I think it is just use the resources that are available out there.
And I want to add to that there are resources in South Africa, but you can look within first before looking externally. I see there's one question in the comment section from Zaid, and he's asking, this is directed to you, Linda. Has the visualization helped with communication to the nurse employees? And does this drive any behavior change?
That's a great question. And again, we have created a really solid foundation in the work that we have done with Wimmy last year, and we continue to expand or bolt on to that foundation through predictive modeling and other tools. Things like growing our data quality, implementing access levels and governance protocols, but also building adherence to treatment guidelines and protocols, or just some of the enhancements we're busy with. And so I think what we wanted to do was first get a really solid foundation for the non-profit company to look at the data. And now we're on a journey of sharing the insights of that information in an appropriate way with our nurse owners. We don't have any nurse employees. They are all owners of their businesses, and they operate their clinics in that way. It's about sharing appropriate information that is in a manner that they can understand. And so sharing that will be part of the next iteration. But also, I don't believe that you wouldn't, in the same way we've seen behavior change and use of data in our organization, once you empower them with that additional knowledge, you are going to see the changes, be it from a implementation of a marketing campaign or focusing on service delivery. I think you'll definitely see the shift that we've seen at the NPC.
Thank you. And I think I want to piggyback on that I think the behavioral change is definitely where you're empowering those nurses. They are now owners, right? Like you said. So that's amazing. There's one more question from Chris. Working across different healthcare organizations, have you built up any reusable templates for data visualization in similar contexts? I think this might be for Ulrich.
Yes, cool. Happy to answer that question. I think yes and no. So in terms of our data infrastructure and pipelines and warehouse and building prepared layers, all of the steps to get to the point of a data visualization, 100%, we have reusable templates all along that pipeline. Of course, no organization is the same. Every organization is unique and different. Like we said, I mean, we have two here who are both in the healthcare industry. They are similar, but yet completely different at the same time, different challenges to solve. So for us to get to the point of visualizing the data, there are many repeatable steps up until that point. In terms of the system that houses the visualizations, there are many templatized things we do, and we do that to increase speed, efficiency, being able to deliver faster and better products, and being able to iterate on that as we go along. So yeah, yes and no.
Cool. Thank you, Ulrich. I believe, Wim, you might have a question for Linda and Nadir.
I do. First of all, thanks again both for your contributions. Okay, I'll keep my question. I first want to give the question that
To
Dr. May asked.
No problem. Okay, Dr. A, he asks, which technologies are you employing for the data visualization pipeline?
Cool. Once again, happy to answer this question. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we do love Google's products. That is something we try and use as far as we can. We are cloud agnostic, but we do favor Google. So in terms of the technologies we use along the way to produce a visualization, we love to use Cloud Run, Cloud Build, Artifact Registry, Cloud Scheduler, kind of all of the serverless technologies in building pipelines. And then, like I mentioned, for our analytical data warehouse, we make use of BigQuery. So this is kind of a technology similar to Snowflake and Redshift. It's Google's version of the serverless data warehouse. In terms of the actual visualizations, the dashboards we build, here we like to make use of Looker Studio. This is Google's competitor to technologies like Tableau and Power BI. The nice thing about Looker Studio is that it is free, which is really nice and useful even for viewers and for editors and creators of dashboards. So that is one of our go-to technologies. Cool. I don't know, Wim, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, quickly. So it's true, we have built more dashboards with Looker than with any other technology, but we have also used Power BI in the past. And where indicated, we can also build bespoke dashboards with low-level technology. And so we have used JavaScript libraries like D3 and charts.js. So it really depends on what does the client need, how interactive, complicated should the data visualizations be, should it be integrated and embedded into a website or standalone. All of these decisions, I think, all of these considerations drive the decisions of what technology to use.
Cool. Thank you, Ulrich and Wim. I just want to be conscious of time. There is one more question that I would like to raise from the comments. It's again Muzaid asking and directing this question to you, Nadir. Let me just put it up. There we go. He mentioned, as you mentioned, a tech company feels like you should be able to do it yourself. What was that trigger that made you say we need experts, and how are you calculating that ROI for that decision?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Musaid. I think for us, there were three main components. The one is genuinely focus, right? So we have a limited set of resources. Do we deploy them to try and figure out data architecture, or do we make them sort of focus on the revenue generating products and enhancing our platform? So I think that's the first lens. So that's an easy one, right? The second lens is the reality of the space, and as Linda alluded to, the fact that there's such deep specialization out there that you may not have within your own organization is already a pointer that at some stage you're going to need to bring in an expert from the outside to help you. And that could be could be sort of a consulting advisory role, or it could be someone actually building it out for you. So those are the two main ones. And then I guess the last one is, you know your data the best. You know your platform, you know your users. So often what happens is, like any big consulting gig, the consultants often sort of learn your business through the process, but it also sharpens your own understanding of your own data and your structures, right? And that's the collaboration that you're after. So I think you need to consider all three of those. And again, depending on the stage of your organization, the step may or may not be appropriate to you. So that trigger is very much, it's very situational. And it's based on the situation your company's in at that point in time. And then just on the calculation of ROI, we've set a very low bar. One was, I think we've already alluded to sort of the 30% reduction in costs. That was the one sort of measure. And the other measure was commercializing some of the data insights. And of course, we're not going to sort of embark on a project like this without some kind of commercial upside. Ultimately, we need to make sure our business is sustainable. So those were the two measures, and obviously that's a bit further down the line for us. So we wanted to bank the savings initially, and then over the next 2 to 3 months, unlock the revenue opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you, Nadir. I guess that wraps it up. So thank you very much to everyone who joined us online, and we appreciate you for your time and your engagement. I'd also like to again thank all the panelists and the speakers. Thank you very much for offering your time. It's really great to hear these valuable insights and sharing your journey with us. It's amazing to hear. If you'd like to learn more about how WIMI can help your organization make better use of your data, feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn or our website via the Contact Us form. I guess that's it for today's webinar. I think Wim would like to mention when we'll be having the next one.
Yeah, so this was the first WIMI webinar. We want to welcome all feedback, all comments from this webinar. We want to learn, we want to keep growing, but also we are planning to do another one in about 2 months from now, mid-April, which will build on this one. So we're going to focus a little bit more on the analytics that one unlocks once you have a strong data platform as a foundation. But we also want to hear from the audience if you have other suggestions for topics that you feel we should cover. Let us know and we can take that into account. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. That's it for today. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.